streamlined, live, and/or accessed at a later date. Note that this may include video and audio of all people present. And that's why we call you to the podium one at a time, so we can get a nice recording of what you're saying. So we've called the meeting to order. The second item of business is our citizens' comments. And this is an opportunity to give the citizens of Lewiston a chance to come before us with questions about the Planning and Zoning Committee that are not related to this public hearing that we're doing business with today. So, is there anyone here that wants to say anything? Well, that takes care of that. Item number 3 is the approval of the January 25th meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look through that? Any corrections?
I didn't see any.
Look good to me.
Well, I would certainly entertain a motion to take care of this little business.
Mr. Chair, I'd motion to approve the meeting minutes from our January 25th meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'll second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. We'll call for the question. Everyone in favor say aye.
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 And those opposed? That motion carries. Item number 4 is the approval of our reason statement and of relevant criteria and the standards that we drew up in order to give permission for this conditional use permit for that to install the billboard sign. That's the CUP 23-0001. Has everyone like what we see there? Any other amendments, if any, that needed to be added to that? Would certainly entertain a motion to accept this as written.
Mr. Chair, I'll make the motion to adopt the reason statement of relevant criteria for conditional use permit application 23, bunch of zeros, 1.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Not gonna read out all those zeros, sorry.
I'll second that.
5 zeros, okay.
It has been moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That one carries too. Thank you. Item number 5 is our public hearing tonight, and we will deliberate and direct the city staff to make up a reason statement for our applications. We've got an annexation, 23-00001. We've got a comprehensive plan amendment, 23-000001, and we have a zone change. That number is 23-00001. The applicant requests that the undeveloped 14.27 acres known as Skyview Estates 3 plat as filed with the Nez Perce County and generally located south of Powers, east of 22nd Street, as depicted on the map attached to the hearing notice. We want this to be removed from the city area of impact and annexed into the city limits of Lewiston. And that is to be assigned to a comprehensive plan land use designation of low density residential and placed in the suburban residential R1 zoning district. And we'll be amending the Lewiston area of impact map accordingly. Okay, the way the hearing works, I've opened the public hearing. City staff will make presentations. We'll have a chance for the applicant to give any kind of testimony. And then we can ask questions, and we will close the public hearing and we'll deliberate. Katie, you've got the floor.
So I used some new technology today because my PowerPoint died on my computer. So we're gonna do this in slides, so bear with me because it's a little bit more special than I'm used to. Okay, so as on the notice, this is our first annexation of 23, so it's number 1. It also includes a comprehensive plan map amendment, also number 1, and a zone change, also number 1. Let's try that. There we go. Okay. So because this is a portion of a larger piece of a plat, and the plat actually went through the county and not the city, the mapping is a little different and the description is a little different, just because it doesn't have our standard RPL numbers and such that we would normally look at. So the portion that is outlined in black is the subject property. This is part of Skyview Estates. This is phase 3. Is recently, just last week, an approved plat from Nez Perce County. You can see that Powers Avenue is up on the north, 22nd Street is on the west side. And there will actually be a new road that will go within this portion of the development. Then this is our, the same map with our zoning layer turned on. So everything that's in that blue-ish color is in our R1 suburban residential zone and is located within city limits. So you can see there are a couple of parcels from phase 1 of this subdivision that have already chosen to ask for annexation. Those were done by those individual property owners, not by the developer. This is the plat map that was just approved by Nez Perce County's Board of County Commissioners. So you can see outlined here is the 36 building lots that are being proposed. All of them are at least 10,000 square feet, which meets the minimum lot size for our R1 zone. They meet the minimum lot standards, also identified in that zone of being at least 70 feet wide and at least 100 feet deep. Many of the lots are well above that size, especially the ones that are on that far east side where 23rd Street comes in. Those ones are, 16,000, 17,000 square feet. Some site photos. So I'll go back so I can identify where I'm at. So I'm at the very bottom here, where Skyview Drive is coming in off of Rippon Avenue for this first set of photos. So this is looking north from that Skyview Drive. So I'm at the end of the currently built road between the two residences of the last two as part of phase 2. So looking north, you can kind of see all the little pics. You can see the sewer connection right there in front of me. You can see their fire hydrant installed farther down. So they have everything marked out. They just were not able to get their paving in prior to asphalt companies shutting down. Now I'm looking west, so you can see that row of houses that borders 22nd. So I'm kind of just looking at their backyards. You can see where the sidewalk stops from the house that's on my west side. So these are homes that are also part of phase 2. Turned around, this is the east side, so you can see the rest of the field past where they're going to, the dirt is kind of our delineating line, and you can see wheat or whatever crop is hanging out past that. So where the dirt ends is basically where the developable portion that we were looking to annex in ends also. And then turned around looking south, these are the other building lots that are part of that phase 2. So looking down what is now Skyview Drive, at some of the other homes that have already been built as a part of that phase 2. And then there's a couple of open building lots that haven't been completed yet. And then looking on Rippon, so I'm looking west. This just goes down Rippon, house on my, on this side over here, this white guy is part of that phase 2 that I was standing in front of on the previous photo. And then looking east, again, you can see the field in the back and where Rippon stops at the current portion of the development. And then on the other end, no, that's also south, sorry. On the other end of the property, so I'm now up on Powers where 23rd is coming into the property. I'm looking south on this photo. Again, this is just the other end of that loop that's gonna end up going through the subdivision. So you can see where they've put, they have some taps going in over here. You can see farther down where some of the other lines are starting to come into the property before they go in and do the paving. And then looking the other direction, looking north, existing houses and some empty building lots from phase 1. And then back, just so you can look at the plat map while I talk about the other things. There we go. Okay. So as noted in the staff report, the plat was in the process of being approved. I was notified by the county planner, Chelsea Mon, on Friday of last week that it had been approved and recorded, so it is now the full meal deal. So unlike other annexations and subdivisions that you have seen in the past, this plat will not come in front of this body for approval since it's already been approved by the county prior to its annexation into city limits. The annexation is part of an annexation agreement that was signed with the developer, Mr. Greco, last year. And so he's applied for that annexation and we're moving forward with that process as previously signed with the city. So the lots, like I said, range in size from 10,813 square feet to 21,629. That's one of those flag lots. So those always end up being a little bit bigger just because of the flagpole and the dimension standards that are required for those. Like I mentioned, all of the lots will meet standard R1 zoning and meet all of those standards within the standard R1 zoning. R1 zoning does allow for single-family dwellings on lots that are at least 10,000 square feet, allows for duplexes by rights on lots that are 15,000 square feet. R1 zone also allows for animal rights, but none of these lots meet the standard lot size required for large animals. That standard is at least half an acre of dedicated pasture area for one large animal, such as a cow or a horse, or like 5 goats, alpacas, sheep, etc. As mentioned, the applicant did sign an irrevocable consent to annexation and utility service agreement with the city of Lewiston last March in 2022, and since has applied for his annexation into city limits. Since the developer owns property that's outside of city limits but desires to utilize city water and sewer services, well, Lloyd water services, but city sewer services that were placed in Powers, that's part of the reason that he desires to be annexed into the city, is to be able to access those. Barney Metz from Lloyd did give me a phone call and said that a booster station has been installed and is operational, and they will be annexing this property into their portable water district. And the water system has been designed for fire flow requirements as dictated by the city. And the developer has been meeting all of those standards, and he had no other objection. He didn't have any objections to the annexation into city limits. Like I said, city sewer will be provided. It is up on Powers and will come down 23rd and then loop through the road. You might be able to, the plat picture that was included in the packet sort of shows some of that, not super clear given, just resolutions and stuff, but it does run through the road, so it will serve all of these properties. And that's kind of it. There aren't as many, I guess, pieces to this one as you would probably normally see since the plat was approved prior to coming to this body by the county. So not as many things that we might normally be reviewing. Surrounding properties are that R1, like I said, so that is an appropriate zoning designation. It meets all the standards of that zone and the purpose and intent of that zone. And I would stand for questions.
Thanks, Katie. That was great.
So in total, sorry, Mr. Chair. In total, how many houses with this development, like when it's fully developed, how many houses are projected to be part of the development, including the ones that have been built?
So not all of the ones that have been built are in city limits, so I don't track those because I don't have anything to do with their plats.
Okay.
The proposal is for 36 building lots.
Okay.
Some of those building lots do meet the standard for duplexes. It's not my understanding that that's the intent of the developer. I believe he's usually just does single-family dwellings.
Okay.
So I would think that you're just going to get 36 new single-family dwellings. Like I said before, you can see that there are 5 properties now. It was 4 at one point, but one of them came into the city and then split because then they were able to utilize that smaller lot size with the hookup to sewer. But other than that, all the other phases and existing properties are still in the county.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, so with them annexing in and the sewer going in, are they all, all the plats are gonna be hooked up to the sewer then? Not
All the ones on this phase.
This phase, yeah, I know, cause I mean, there was a couple, I think, on the corner there, the ones that are individually, they applied later and had to do their own hookups.
Yes, exactly. That was part of the reason why those private property owners chose to annex, was to be able to do the hookups to the sewer when it went through that portion of Powers.
Right.
And then all of the proposed lots in the new section in phase 3 will all be on city services for sewer.
Appreciate it. We've got a chance now for the applicant to present testimony, if the applicant wants to present testimony.
I don't think my applicant showed up, so I am on that part.
All right, well, we'll take care of that. And now we'll come to the portion where we can take some testimony from the public. So if there's anyone in the audience that would like to come up to the podium, and you may approach. Just speak your name and address clearly, please.
My name is Wayne Grofsema, and I live at 2230 Powers Avenue in Lewiston. I'm one of the properties that, quote, voluntarily was annexed a few years ago. My question is if this annexation of Phase 3 is approved, if it's an appropriate question here, is what impact will it have on the rest of the properties on Powers that were not previously annexed because they did not voluntarily do that? Because I know that there were other stipulations made from somebody out of the Planning Commission that spoke to us back in December of 18 about what they would be granted, as well as timeframes. They were actually presented with information saying that they would be forcibly annexed well before this date. And so now with this coming up as a voluntary annexation from Joe's standpoint, that's kind of my curiosity as far as for the rest of the people.
It's a valid concern. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, so I can be clear, so you're asking about the properties that are gonna be surrounded by
Yes,
the annexed areas that are along Powers there?
yes,
Okay.
those are the ones I'm asking about. The 5 essentially that are there now.
For clarity, because I'm new to the process of voluntarily asking to annex into the city. That was to develop and so that you could hook to the sewer, correct?
Right, our home was not far enough along to get a permit for a septic,
Okay,
knowing that eventually the sewer line would come up onto Powers out to 23rd Street. And so even though the original plan for our house was to have a septic, but once they broke ground and started applying for the additional permits, that one was denied because even though it was supposed to have been out there in advance, it didn't get out there until late December of 18. So we didn't get a septic put in, and the only way our now completed house could be occupied was to agree to be annexed and then be able to get a permit to hook up to the sewer line. And that happened to a few of the rest of them that are on Powers that are in the city limits now. We were all in the same boat.
you were tardier on the progress of your build, and then there was a cutoff date from septic?
Essentially.
Okay.
Essentially so. And one of the ones, it would have been, I think, 2208 They were the first house in from the corner of 22nd and Powers. Turns out that for them to have a viable septic system, it would have had to been a pressurized system, and that for them was cost prohibitive. And so they couldn't even occupy their house for 6 months until the sewer line got put in. But then they were presented the same thing. You can't hook up to the sewer unless you agree to be a part of the city. And so those of us, we chose to do that in order to make a viable home
Right.
out of what was already built.
And is your primary concern about?
I'm just asking the question of how does that impact the other 5 homes now that with this, that are now going to be surrounded by the city?
Homes with septic, but surrounded by the city?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Question. I'm not sure I know the answer.
Kayla, do you know the answer?
I don't.
I think I assumed from the graph that actually even the existing homes were part of the annexation, so I think that clarifies something for me.
Well, I can tell you that the current owners of those 5 properties have not been notified of that.
That they're not part of the annexation?
Well, they haven't been notified of any assumption that it is part of the annexation.
Oh, okay.
Their assumption is that they're not included because they haven't been told otherwise.
That sounds like something we can deal with. We can have
Sure.
the staff.
Yeah.
take care of that.
And so, since I got the notice about the meeting, I figured, okay, this is affecting this, just out of curiosity. And if I got into conversations with some of my neighbors, I could be able to answer the question for them, or at least direct them to somebody else within the city government to get clarification.
This young lady right there.
One follow-up. So in 2018, when you were pursuing a septic because you were county, and you just referenced that all the residents at some point as they were building knew that there would be a forced annexation at some point?
That's what they were told. We were all told that in a December, I think it was December 4th, 2018 meeting that was held out at the corner of Powers and 23rd.
Okay, so in time as that phase is the.
Well, actually, the kind of the verbiage that was said is if you voluntarily sign to be annexed in order to connect to the sewer, you can expect the annexation process to be completed within just a few months. If you didn't, it would probably double the time, but probably within 6 months, you would be receiving notice that you would be forced into annexation, which, to my knowledge, and by seeing the map, has not yet happened. And we're talking years down the road.
I don't think we can force anyone into annexation.
Well,
This is voluntary.
a representative,
There are,
But that's not what we're dealing with today.
Right, you have to go through. a
I know that's
process.
not what you're
Yeah.
doing right now, but my question is how does it impact those that are being surrounded now? Because it's kind of unusual to be county property surrounded by city.
It has happened.
Yeah, it's unusual, but, and so that was really my question. Thank you.
I don't know if we can answer it now, but we can in the future.
Okay, thank you so.
Anyone else have public testimony tonight? You may step up.
Hi, my name is Larry Brisbane, and I live at 2224 Powers Avenue, and I am one of the people that are still on the septic. I have no desire to change at this point in time because of the expense of doing that, and it's my understanding, we've lived there a year and a half, and it's my understanding that it's a numerous amount of years down the road before we would have to switch to the city unless something went wrong with our septic or something to that effect. So I'm just voicing my opinion that I just as soon as stay it the way it is.
Great, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any other people? step up. Any testimony from the public today, emails or anything like that? Katie, would you like to say anything more?
Well, I mean, I guess,
Can we address that a little bit?
well, so I don't have a firm answer on the annexation thing. So there is language in Idaho state statute about doing forcible annexations when a property is located in the area of city impact. I have not found the city council to be real excited about that. That has not been a direction staff has ever gotten. I'm not real sure, I was unfortunately not in planning and zoning in 18, so I'm not real sure who all was involved in that meeting. But I don't think that that is the intent currently. With the septic thing, my understanding from public health, because septic systems go through them, is that if you have a current septic system and it fails, then you would be forced onto a sewer if you had sewer within 200 feet of your property. But they don't, otherwise they're not going out and like making people, decommission their septic, if their septic system is a viable septic system and is working the way it's supposed to. But I do know that if for some reason you were to have a failure, then that situation is different. And since you do have sewer in Powers, that decision would come from them in Public Works, and then they might make you switch over. But as long as your septic system's working, you should be fine. Those are my two understandings of things in the brief manner that I understand them. But yeah, I mean, this particular annexation is one that was applied for by Mr. Greco. And so ultimately, I don't know the answer to your question, I'm sorry, of how that might affect the surrounding properties. I don't know if down the road there would be interest from council to do a forcible annexation, but that's not the feeling I have gotten from other directions I've gotten from them.
One question. So I'm presuming by the testimony and what you're saying that if in fact annexation is forced, the systems can be grandfathered in, the existing septics, but should one fail, we're talking homeowners bear the burden and the cost of all of the connection to the main
Correct.
sewer?
That's my understanding,
So
yes.
that's quite prohibitive, isn't it? Or do you know it?
I don't know what those fees are. I know that it's expensive. But those fees come out of our Public Works Department, so I'm not privy to that information, like, off the top of my head.
So what would, I guess my thought process is, absent forcible annexation, what would happen if a septic system failed for somebody who's right now currently in county limits? Would it still be public health and
It
public
would still be
health
public
require
health.
them to
Yep,
hook
all
up to the city
septic
line?
systems go under public health, that's all, yeah.
Well, so would, if a septic system failed now, would public health then require them to hook up to the city line?
I think that they would look to see how close the city line was. I know that we have residents who are not within city limits that are on city sewer systems because they are adjacent to them. I know that the hookup costs and the rates they pay and stuff like that is different than if you were within city limits. Again, I can't speak to those numbers because I'm not from Public Works. And I didn't know those would be the questions, so I did not have someone come, I'm very
not holding your
sorry.
feet to the fire here, I'm just more
No, I
curious than
kinda
anything
was,
else.
yeah.
Well, I'll leave that to you, Cynthia.
Okay.
Ultimately, septic permits do come from the health department. Usually when a property is not close enough to be able to hook up to a sewer line, and they are gonna go like build their home or build whatever they're building, they would work with the health department first, do their test holes and all of that kind of stuff to determine where the septic system is going to be located. And they turn in a copy of that permit and that site plan from the health department showing where that septic system is going to be as part of their building package to community development, so that we know that everything is working in conjunction the way it's supposed to. Because there are still properties within city limits that are not close enough to hook up to sewer and do have septic systems.
Yeah, no, I walked through a house on Prospect that had a septic.
Yeah, there's that
On
weird little like
Prospect,
one
yeah,
block
yeah.
that doesn't have septic, or doesn't have sewer.
Yeah,
Oh,
It's very strange.
yeah, and so they weren't first in, so thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Any other, thanks, Kate. Okay. Well, seeing that we have no more people coming up to talk to us, I'm gonna close the public hearing. And now, as a committee, we will deliberate on the criteria for an annexation. Kayla, I'm not sure which one I'm looking at. Is it just a regular criteria that we have to?
Well, so actually, there's a couple different motions that the commission will need to go through. So the first piece is a recommendation regarding the annexation. There are no specific criteria or standards for the commission to go through for that. You can just have general, discussion on whether or not you think annexation is appropriate. And then I'm happy to walk you through the next steps if you'd like.
Kayla, does anyone have any questions or comments about the annexation? It sounds to me like it's a pretty cut and dry
Yeah, I mean, it's
situation.
in the area of city impact and everybody involved wants it, so I don't see a reason why we shouldn't annex it.
We're creeping, it's creeping, so you gotta,
Progress.
yeah.
I think it's pretty straightforward.
All right. Well, I would certainly recommend a motion to approve this annexation 23-00001.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion to send the annexation to the city council.
Moved, is there a second?
Chair, I will second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next, let's see. Okay, now, let's see. Kayla, can you help me out?
Sure.
Do we have to open a public hearing again, or?
No,
Okay.
so the next step for the commission will be to make your recommendation to the city council on whether or not to approve the comprehensive plan portion of that, which is to assign a comprehensive plan land use designation of low-density residential for this area. So there are no specific standards or criteria for that component either.
Okay. What does the commission think? Kevin, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, I mean, I would recommend approval for the comprehensive plan amendment. Reading over the packet that we had, it talked about that area being, I believe that's neighborhood 7. So, and, obviously it's completely residential, so I think it's very appropriate for it to be below residential R1. So I would recommend approval of the CAP 23-1.
Yeah.
11 a lot size, so yeah.
Well, I would certainly entertain a motion to approve this comprehensive plan amendment.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that
23-0001. Thanks, Gabe. It's been moved. Is there a second?
I will
Cindy?
second, yes.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve this. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion carries too. All right, last on the agenda, we have a zone change. Zone change number 23-0001. And this is where we will recommend to the city council that we approve this. It's a motion to recommend approval of the associated area of impact city map amendment to the city council.
Chair, can I just clarify real quick? So the next step you will need to do is go through your standard, relevant criteria and standards for a rezone, just like you normally would, which was provided in your packet towards the end. And then you will, just like normal, be directing staff to draft a reason statement for the zoning component of this. And just a reminder, this was A request to zone this area suburban residential R1. So that's the next step. You're almost to the last step.
Let's do the finish line. Okay. All right. Does everyone have the list in front of them tonight? All right, number one, the proposed rezone, I believe it is in general conformance with the Lewiston Comprehensive Plan. In fact,
That's how I read it, as far as, you know, comparing the comprehensive plan and the future of it,
Agree.
the future of that neighborhood.
I agree, yeah.
I think we're all in agreement then, this is in general conformance with the plan. Number two, the subject property is or is not at least well-suited or is better suited for the proposed zoning district. I'm gonna have to say that it is also at least well-suited.
I agree.
Anybody else have any other reasons why, except for Katie's great testimony?
Yeah, the suburban residential zone very clearly says to provide for agricultural or transitional area for suburban residential use, so I don't think we can fit it any better than that.
Yeah.
Say it any better. Number three, the proposed rezone, it either does or does not present or foreseen immutable impacts of incompatible uses or development. I don't see it doing that.
No, I don't either. I think it fits with the area.
I agree.
Okay. Number four, the effects of the proposed rezone, I believe, are not anticipated to place any undue burden on the delivery of services. According to the testimony from different entities.
Forgive me, did we, the fire and school districts didn't have any, the subdivisions didn't have any feedback or any disagreement at all, did they?
No, so input from other departments, fire department said access to water, access and water supply shall comply with the International Fire Code. And like I stated from the phone call from Barney Metz from Lloyd,
Yeah.
they have put in that booster station and it was built to fire flow standards by IFC. And then I received no comments from school district, and the only other comments I did receive were also in the staff report from the engineering department. And they had no,
Just wanted to clarify that.
no objections.
Thank you.
Okay, the last one, the size, type, intensity, and density of the development is expected to occur on the subject property as a result of this rezoning. I believe it is suitable for the area and will not unduly burden the infrastructure. Anyone else agree with that?
I would agree.
Okay.
Agree.
It sounds like we've checked all the boxes. Kayla, do you have anything else?
Nope, at this point, you would just direct staff to draft a reason statement recommending approval to council if that's the commission's desire.
I would make a motion to direct staff to draft a reason statement approving,
Zoning portion.
yes.
Sounds great.
I'll second. Kevin.
Kevin,
All you.
seconded. It's been moved and seconded that we approve this. Zone change 23-00001. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed? That motion carries. Brings us to number 6 on the list, the staff and commission communications.
Oh, and actually, Chair, sorry.
No.
That's okay.
There's one final sort of administrative step. In doing all of this, the area of city impact map will then be altered. So a final motion to just check that box would be a motion to recommend approval of the associated area of city impact map amendment to council.
Recommending it for
Mr. Chair.
approval?
Yes,
Okay.
recommendation.
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Kevin.
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the associated city area of city impact map, also to be amended and included to the city council. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Who was the second on that?
wait, did I? Oh, yes, that's right, I seconded, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry.
So many to
Couldn't
choose
remember if
from.
Kevin or I pushed, were the first ones.
That was the one before it.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Now we're down to the item number 6.
Kevin and Cynthia are beating me to everything.
All right, number 6, staff and commission communications. So anything else, Katie, that?
So we do have a new commissioner being appointed at the February 13th council meeting, and so she will join us at the 22nd meeting. Her name is Maureen Anderson. So we're excited to have that spot filled. We do still have one more open commission seat, so if you know anybody else, please reach out.
Do we not have any other applicants,
We
I
have
assume?
not had any other applicants.
I don't know how else to push it, I mean,
Yeah,
Bring it
so-
back out there again.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, so it is being advertised on the website, it has been pushed out on Facebook a couple of times. We did reach out to everybody who applied for the open city council seat to see if there was any interest. We've definitely been, working all the manners that
Yeah.
we have available to us. Unfortunately, we're not getting a lot of interest, so, if you know anybody, please, tell them to reach out to the city clerk to get an application. Yeah, that's what we got. Then, so on the 22nd, we do have a public hearing planned for another zone change. So I do need to know how many of you folks plan to be there, and if anyone plans on not
I'll be here.
being there.
I'll be here. 23rd? Everyone looks good.
Fantastic.
And Maureen, hopefully will be here next meeting.
She's supposed to be here, so
Thank you, Katie.
that's all I got.
Brings us to the last item on the agenda. Motion to adjourn.
I will make that motion,
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Gabe, appreciate that. Anybody?
I will second.
Thanks, Cindy. It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn this meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries. Thank you.